This is Accessibility Online, brought to you by Arts Access. This is your team of presenters you are seeing on the screen, and we're going to introduce ourselves. I am Betsy Ludwig. I'm the Executive Director of Arts Access. I am a white woman in my 50s. I'm wearing a blue shirt. I've got glasses and short curly hair, and I am sitting in my lovely Arts Access office, and behind me is our website and some signage indicating Arts Access.
Hello, my name is Megan Bostic. I'm the Arts Access Programs Manager. I am a white woman in my mid-30s with brown shoulder-length hair and bangs. I am in my home art studio, so behind me there are some shelves with trinkets visible.
Hello, I am Tamar Harris-Warren. I am the Programs Coordinator and a recently trained audio describer with Arts Access. I am a petite Black woman with a nose ring and glasses, and my hair is in a upward bun at the top of my head. I am in my mid-40s, and I'm sitting in my home studio in Wake Forest, North Carolina, in front of a blue wall.
Hi, my name is Debbie Hippler. I am the Arts Access Audio Description Coordinator and Trainer. I'm an older woman with longer chin-length hair, gray hair, around an oval face with freckles and dark frame glasses. I'm sitting in my dining room with family pictures hanging behind me.
I'm John Samuel, the Chief Innovation Architect at LCI Tech. I am an Indian male in my 30s. I have dark hair, wearing a pink shirt, and I'm sitting at a table at my parents' house with a gray wall behind me.
Thank you, everyone. Now we'll begin the presentation. So, the topic today is accessibility online, how you can make your online meetings and events accessible and inclusive for people who are blind or low vision. And as you just heard from the opening, we're going to be attempting to practice what we're teaching you how to do today. So we started with some description of ourselves. Full disclosure, some of us are more trained in this than others, but I point that out because we are all learning together. So at Arts Access, we've had to take our board meetings and our events online, and so as we get better on it, we are attempting to do it in our content, and that's what we're going to be focused on supporting you in today. Our topics today are why this matters. We're going to give you a little background on the reasons we do this. We're going to give you information on understanding blindness and low vision and the range of that. We're going to explain what is audio description, how it's used in multiple formats, but then we're going to focus on basic tips and strategies that anyone can use for online meetings and events. We'll also talk about considerations for planning, what you do before your event ever happens. And lastly, we'll talk about marketing and reaching out to people with disabilities so they know that you are welcoming and you can increase your audiences. I'll start with some information about Arts Access. We were founded in 1984, and our mission is to make North Carolina's cultural arts community for children and adults fully accessible. We do lots of different services to try and achieve our mission. That includes training and consultation, like this webinar, but we also work with organizations individually. We do audio description. We are one of the largest providers of audio description in the country. We do that in Central North Carolina for museums, theaters, performing arts venues, musical theater, ballet, lots of different things. And Debbie will tell you a little more in her section on how that works. We have a very active social media and newsletter where we try and share resources. We'll show you at the end on how you can sign up and be getting that information. Outreach and advocacy. We answer a lot of questions and we try and help a lot of individuals that are either looking for information or accessible arts or trying to be artists themselves. We have different programs in support of individuals. So we welcome you to learn more about us and stay in touch after this event. A big thank you to the NCADA network. They provided funding for this webinar, so we were able to provide it at no cost to participants and post it on our YouTube channel. This is one of a series. We've done one other webinar, which you can find on our YouTube channel, how to support people who are deaf and hard of hearing, and this is our second one. And a special thank you to Karen Hamilton. She is a North Carolina ADA Network Project Coordinator, and she was our partner in bringing you this today. At all of our events and trainings, we like to spend a little time on the why behind the how. So the next couple of slides are why this matters. A lot of people are already there. You get it, you're doing it, you want to do it better. But sometimes people are new to this work, and it does help to understand the reasons behind accessibility and the movement and how this is important. It also gives you tools and things to take back to your organization if you're trying to seek funding or get other people to care about this. So I'll spend a little bit on why this matters. One of the first reasons is the statistics, disability statistics. There are a lot of people who have vision loss and who are blind. The American Community Survey of 2017 says in North Carolina, there are 285,500 plus people who have some kind of vision loss. In America, the same survey, 7.5 million of people estimated to have a visual disability in the US. And once again, that can be a range of low vision to fully blind, but we know as we age, changing vision and vision loss is a very common thing for most people. So there are a lot of people that can benefit from this. The law, the Americans with Disabilities Act, it was passed in 1990. The web wasn't what it was then, but in the modifications of 2008, there was more components of the law or things written on how you need to address online accessibility. This slide is showing an image of the signing of the ADA in 1990. The image is group of 5 people. In the middle is George H.W. Bush, and he is signing the legislation. On either side of him are Justin Dart and Evan Kemp, who are both in wheelchairs, 2 other officials behind them, and they are on the White House lawn. This was a very significant piece of legislation that affects that, but it's also one of the things you need to think about when providing accommodations. Slide. This is an image of the ADA's 30th anniversary. It celebrates 30 years this July 26, 2020. Plug, Arts Access is planning an event, so stay tuned to learn more about that. But under the law, Title II and Title III do address effective communications. And there's 3 components of that relate to our topic today. Under the law, you need to provide auxiliary aids and services. Audio description is one of those services. Reasonably modifying policies, practices, or procedures, how you do things, your willingness to make your content accessible, that is covered under the law. And then training your staff about effective communication. Learning about this and understanding this is something the law addresses. So there's a whole lot of other information about this, and that is a different workshop, but you can always call the ADA Southeast Center, and we have leaving you with 2 resources, their phone number, 1-800-949-4232, or their website, adasoutheast.org. That is a great place to get more information, answer specific questions, and a tremendous amount of resources for getting more information about the law. And if you are the ADA coordinator for your organization, or you're not clear on what your obligations are or how your funding works, we encourage you to go deeper in this. Slide. Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, this applies to federally and federally funded programs, and there was something put out called the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. On this slide, there is a screenshot of what those guidelines look like. It is another outline of things under that law that you are obligated to do around accessibility, and encourage you to learn more. Slide. Another reason to do this, how we think and talk about people with disabilities has changed and evolved. There are some older models of disability I'm going to describe to you with some I like just to call old-fashioned, outdated, not progressive thinking. There are 3 models under this banner. One of them is the moral model, and on this slide is an image of a painting. It's an oval painting. Several men in red and white stand behind St. Valentine, and St. Valentine was known for healing people with epilepsy. He is wearing a golden headpiece and a cross on a long gold chain, a long red cape over a white robe, standing with his right arm extended over a young woman with her arms extended with a splayed fingers, lying on the ground with her head in another woman's lap. So that is a description of the painting, but what appears to be going on is she is being healed by St. Valentine. And we use this image because the moral model is somehow that disability was caused by God or a higher power. And that if you had a disability, it's because you were evil or you were out of favor with God. That is a very outdated way of thinking, although it's still very prevalent in many communities and cultures, but somehow God did it, and only God can fix it, and people with disabilities had to be shut away because they were evil or you could catch it. That is a very old way of thinking, and I don't think I need to say, but it's a very negative way of thinking about disability. The second model of disability is the charity model. In the middle of the screen is an image. It is Jerry Lewis. He is a dark-haired man wearing a black tuxedo and holding a black microphone. He stands in front of a wall with silver rays extending from a large silver diamond around bold letters spelling out Jerry Lewis, MDA, telethon. Now, if you are of a certain age, you will remember this telethon. He did it every year, and he raised a lot of money for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. That is a great thing. Charities that raise money and do good are wonderful things. On the other hand, Jerry was always paternalistic. It was very much doing for the poor little kids. They called them Jerry's kids. He would bring out young adults and call them his kids. But it was, and they would raise money in a sort of a pitying fashion that only Jerry could help them. They couldn't help themselves or do for themselves. That is a very outdated model, and it is considered negative, and you don't want to talk about people with disabilities as less than or needing your help in a charity view. Lastly is the medical model, and we have an image on the right of the screen which I will describe. It is a cartoon style poster of a young man on crutches at the base of 2 steps. On the top step is a young girl with extended arms and crutches falling away from her. On the wall behind is in multicolored letters, it spells out the National Surgical Institute of Philadelphia. So we chose this image to represent the medical model. And the medical view of disability is if we can just fix or cure the person using science, using medicine, then they will be okay. They will be normal. I'm making quote marks with my hands. They will be like us. And until they're like us, they're not okay. Now, once again, there's nothing wrong with science and medicine and therapies. Everybody wants optimal functioning. Everybody wants to have the best quality of life they can. On the other hand, when people are told until you're normal, until you're fixed, you're not okay, and all the money should go to research, to fixing the thing, that can be a very negative model. People with autism, people who are deaf are like, this is me. This is who I am. I'm not going to change. Stop trying to make me like you. So those are outdated models that we encourage you to move past. And the model we encourage you to look towards is the social rights model. This is a much more progressive way of thinking. This is the model that people with disabilities have been advocating for. This is the model that the Americans with Disabilities Act was all about, the social and rights model. And that is looking at disability as the result of the interaction between people with disabilities and an environment that is filled with multiple barriers: physical, attitudinal, social, and communication. If you can change the barriers, if you can address the barriers, then disability is no longer as debilitating or as big an issue. And so if you're going to do that, the rehabilitation comes with laws, environmental modifications. And what you're trying to do is ensure equitable access and opportunity. There's a lot of talk right now about diversity, equity, and inclusion. We think disability inclusion is right in the heart of that work. If you can reduce the barriers and make it equitable, the person's disability is no longer as big an issue. On this slide, we have 2 images that were taken at events we held at the North Carolina Museum of Art. Terrific partners of ours. They're doing a lot of great work on accessibility. But the top image is a young girl with a disability and her mom, and they are sitting at a table doing art together. Looks like they're drawing with markers. This was a hands-on art day for families that we worked with the museum, but we designed it to be especially inclusive and welcoming. Maybe some families had come to the museum that had never been there before, had a positive experience, and would try more of the programs. The image below is actually our audio description training we held at the museum. And in the image are 3 people. On the right is a gentleman named Robert. He serves on our board and he is blind. And with him are 2 describers on the left. And they are standing in front of a piece of sculpture and they are describing the art to Robert. So he is enjoying the art along with an audio described tour. And the cool thing that's not in that slide is we also did some tactile experiences that day, and Robert was getting to experience the museum with reduced barriers. So those are 2 examples of the social and rights model. So the older models can also go under the label of ableism, and some things that are different about the older models and the model we're encouraging you. So ableism is you want to change the individual to accommodate society. In the social model, you seek to change society to accommodate the individual. Ableism, people with disabilities can't make their own decisions. In the social model, they are driving the car, the boat, they are driving the work. They have the right to participate and make decisions. We use this phrase all the time, nothing about me without me. They are the ones that are giving input and deciding what they want. You don't want to focus on what's negative or what they can't do. In recreation therapy, which is what I practice, it's strength-based. You talk about what they can do and you create opportunities around that. And in the older models, the professional or the doctor or the arts organization official is in charge. The social model, you try and move to the individual is in charge. They are the ones, they know what they want and how to best provide it. So to sum up, if you are offering an event or service, it is your job to think about equity and access. It is your job to think about how to be inclusive and welcoming, and you design your programs and your events with that in mind. You apply the principles of universal design so it's accessible to everyone from the beginning. So, slide, Megan. So those are some of the reasons. Now we're going to move into personal perspective and expertise. And I do want to highlight, whenever you are doing disability work, please think about involving people with lived experience. We have 2 speakers today with a lot of expertise, but they also have lived experience. So I'm going to turn this over to John Samuel.
Thanks, Betsy. And thank you guys so much for having me here today. My name is John Samuel, and I am the Chief Innovation Architect at LCI Tech. We're a division of LCI, the largest employer of Americans who are blind, and we're based right here in the Triangle. I was diagnosed with a degenerating eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa when I was in college. And when I was in college and was told going blind, I was scared about what kind of career I was going to be able to have and where I was going to be able to live, because I didn't think I was going to be able to live in North Carolina if I couldn't drive. But I think in today's current environment, what we're seeing, even though we're going through a lot of hardships, there are some silver linings. And one of those is the adoption of virtual meetings. Now, this really takes away the transportation barrier that has hindered a lot of people like myself from pursuing careers in the area. And I think that as we start to use more of these online meeting platforms, it's important that we think about how that experience is for everyone. And so typically I spend my days as working and thinking about how do we make websites and digital content more accessible for everyone. But now I'm finding myself in front of a Zoom camera every day And I'm thinking now about using the same framework that we use for web accessibility, but to evaluate what that experience on a Zoom or video conferencing platforms like. So I'm going to be using the POUR framework, which is an acronym for perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. So when I think about the perceivable aspect, I think about what's on that screen and what do I need to be aware of as a blind person? What can everyone else see? You know, Betsy did a wonderful job of explaining to me and everyone else on this who's viewing this webinar what those pictures are about. You know, I now know what that picture of St. Valentine is because of how Betsy described it. But that's what's really important about making sure that people are aware and that people the information that's being shown on a screen. As for the operable and understandable, I'm going to combine those two because I often see the challenges in the invitation itself. When I get an invitation to a meeting, there's often a lot of numbers, there's some links, and half the time I don't know what number, what's the pin, and I'm struggling just to even get onto the meeting. And if there's a link and I have to click on it, I don't even know if there's going to be an app I need to download. So it's important that in those invitations that we explain to people that they can easily know how to operate and understand what's going on to be able to get on to the meeting itself. And as for the robust component, as a user of assistive technology, I use a screen reader to help me navigate a computer. And some platforms are better than others regarding the use and ease of using an assistive technology with that video platform. Our organization has been using Zoom for the past year, and the key reason has been the ease of use with an assistive technology called the screen reader, and the one I use is called JAWS. On Zoom, I'm able to turn on and off the ability for people to hear my screen reader, depending on if I want them to hear my screen reader being used. And so this makes it really easy for people to share their experiences. If I'm having trouble with an assistive, an accessibility problem, I can share with my sighted partners on my screen to say, look, can you hear what I'm seeing? Or can you see what I'm hearing? But that's the kind of things that we have to think about, is break it back down to the perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. It's a great rule of thumb that anyone can use at any time to think about the accessibility of a digital experience or even a physical one. But as I conclude on this, I'd like to share a couple of best practices from my own time on virtual meetings. When we're going into a meeting, it's always great if you can share the information or slides or documents that are going to be discussed on that on the meeting, because sometimes I have to get my assistive technology set up to be able to read those documents as you're going through it. So if you're able to share in advance, that's awesome. Second, don't be upset if I turn off my screen. Sometimes people using assistive technology have a challenge using assistive technology with the video being shared. So sometimes we turn it off. And so don't be upset if someone does that. It's just sometimes something that we have to deal with. And finally, I think about just the basic concept of asking people, what can I do to help make your experience better? What kind of accommodations can we make? You know, it's really as simple as that. Too often we forget the simplest ones, but just asking people, is there anything we can do to make sure that your experience on this virtual meeting is the best one possible? But those are just a few takeaways that I hope that can help you improve your virtual meetings and help the experience for all people. And now I'm going to pass it on to Debbie.
Thank you, John. I'm now going to cover understand blindness and low vision and a little bit about audio description. Next, please. Understanding blindness and low vision. Only 1 to 2% of those classified as legally blind are congenitally blind or blind from birth. People with vision loss may only have peripheral vision, may only see shapes, light and dark, certain colors, movement, shadows, blurs, or have quote unquote tunnel vision. This is sourced from the American Foundation for the Blind and the American Council for the Blind. We're going to have some examples now of the variation in vision loss. There are 2 pictures on the screen. On the left is a young boy, probably about 10, with brown hair, grinning, and a smaller boy, about 5, with his arms wrapped around his neck. He's got darker hair. They're both light complected and grinning with a space in their new teeth. On the right is an example of vision with macular degeneration that's blurred all around the edges, and the faces of the two little boys are completely blacked out and not visible. Next, please. Diabetic retinopathy. The example of this vision on the left in the normal pictures, you have three children, all about the same age, a little boy grinning with dark hair, a little brunette girl, and a little blonde-headed girl, a couple of them with freckles on their face and wide grins. On the right, if you have diabetic retinopathy, the only face that is completely visible is the little brunette girl in the middle. There are black splotches spattered about the picture so that there's not available detail all the way around. Next, please. Retinitis pigmentosa. Normal vision on the left. You have this cute little dark complected girl leaning in to a little boy. The little girl's got big brown eyes and her dark curly hair pulled up in a red twisty. On the right is a light complected little boy grinning with his chin in his hand, those wavy brown hair around his face. But if you have retinitis pigmentosa, the other slide, all you see is the little girl's nose and her left eye, and the little boy's left eye, his fingers, and his ear. It's black all the way around, just that small oval of vision in the center. Next, please. Glaucoma. If you have normal vision, this picture shows from the inside of a car, you see the silver hood, and there's a space of about a car's length, and then you see the back end of a small sedan parked or stopped at a stop sign at an intersection. There's a car on the left side of the intersection. Further on, you see some parked cars, some bare trees, and some buildings. But if you had glaucoma on the right, the only thing that is clear is the back of the car in front of you. The edges is framed completely black, and it's blurry up to that clear center. The degree of side or peripheral vision loss varies upon the severity of this disease. Next, please. This is depicting cataracts. Two little boys, a little blonde-headed boy holding a big yellow ball, and a little dark-headed boy with his arm wrapped around the other's neck holding a red and white soccer ball. They're standing in front of a picket fence or a wooden fence. But if you have cataracts, none of that definition is clear. The entire view is blurred. There are accessibility symbols for blind and low vision to show that you are offering certain accommodations. Access for people who are blind and low vision. The top left tile shows a black silhouette of a body walking with a cane extended. Large print is in large black letters on the left bottom tile. The top right tile reads Braille. There are 6 dots, 2 vertical lines of 3. The bottom tile, in large bold print, the letters A, D, with 3 right parentheses on the right side of the D. This shows that you offer audio description. So what is audio description? Audio description is a tool for people who are blind or have low vision that provides access to the visual aspects of theater, media, visual art, meetings, or events. Trained audio describers provide this skill for each of those events that I just mentioned: movies, live theater, exhibits, etc. Arts Access has done many festivals. We've even been asked to describe a parade. The job of a trained audio describer is like that of a journalist responsible for communicating the facts: who, what, when, where, and how. Arts Access, as mentioned before, provides this service from Central North Carolina all the way to the coast. Now we're going to show you a short video. Enjoy the accents and listen, please.
Just watch a movie and close your eyes, and you can't follow most movies with just listening. Be like, who's that? What's going on?
Police lights flash on the front of the buyer's house as Officer Callahan stands outside with Joyce and Jonathan.
Audio description is a description of the action that's going on in between the dialogue.
Inside the dark house, Hopper walks down the hallway with a flashlight.
For blind people, having that audio description, it becomes their eyes. I definitely say Orange is the New Black, Stranger Things and Game of Thrones have been my audio description highlights.
11 closes her eyes. Elsewhere in the lab, the man from the photo sits at a table with a piece of paper.
I can't see anything at all. So actually, I've never had audio description on life, as it were. So having it on TV is a great start.
I use it for watching TV programs, for films at home, films in the cinema.
Theatre and cinema are my favourites.
I use audio description when I go to football matches.
A lot of those little subtleties in the way a person looks or something they do with their hands is actually a massive part of the story.
11 steps out wearing the dress and wig. Lucas gives Dustin an impressed look as Mike gawks at her.
If it's a gentle film, they'll have perhaps a gentler voice.
Blinks, tilting his head.
And in the action films, they'll have a harder edge description.
It drags dried growth and a piece of shepherd's suit across the floor, leaving behind a trail of blood.
All that tension, a lot of that is based in seeing what's happening and getting a sense of the atmosphere, and that's really brought to life as well by audio description. I don't watch anything without audio description.
I'm an absolute addict of audio description. I OD on AD.
For more information, call the RNIB helpline.
I hope you enjoyed that. That, as you can tell, is from the UK. Basic tips and strategies for anyone to use. General tips for describing what's on screen. Less is more. You can't and shouldn't convey every visual component on a display. Listeners should be allowed to hear the voices, the sound effects, the music, or experience the silence with other participants. And clarity is the goal. Based on the description, could someone visualize what's happening without becoming confused? Describing who. Who is hosting the event? Who is in the meeting? Who is attending? Speakers/presenters should describe themselves and their surroundings, as we did when we started this. Speakers should introduce themselves each time they speak. This is helpful for captions and transcriptions as well. Describe what is most essential for the viewer to know to understand images and graphics. What's happening? Describe what you see. Go from the general to the specific. Use directional language, left to right, top to bottom, or clockwise. On the right of this slide, you see an outline of the United States of America with the state of North Carolina highlighted in gold. On top of that, in bold blue letters, 25.6% over black letters that read, of adults in the US have some type of disability. On the right is the outline of the state of North Carolina. Again, those bold blue letters read 26.8% over top of black letters that read, of adults in North Carolina have some type of disability. Below this is a picture of a page printed in Braille with a hand reading the Braille lines. Now we're going to have Tamar take over and address the accessibility considerations for planning online events.
Accessibility considerations for planning online events. Remember, accessibility is a learning process. It's about being thoughtful. Practice makes progress. Include people with disabilities in your event planning. Next slide. Questions to consider for planning. Is the event open to the public? Do attendees have to RSVP? Is it live versus pre-recorded? How much visual material does the event include? How many people are attending the event? What platform am I using to stream, record, and share the event? On this slide, we're going to highlight events that require RSVP. To the right of the text on the top of the slide, you're going to see an example of this type of form. You would like to provide a point of contact, allow participants to request accommodations, and give a deadline and a simple way for people to respond. To the right, again, is a highlight of what these two questions could look like on this form. At the top, on the right, to the right of the text, you see accommodation information, and underneath it are 5 bulleted items that are different accommodations that could be provided, and a text box for the person that is RSVPing to complete below that. Below that text box, in bold, you see the text, would you like to request any accessibility accommodations that would improve your experience? And then there is a text box field below for the person to RSVP and add that information there. To the right of that text box, you will see a purple box, and it says, we ask that all accommodations be made 9 days ahead of each event in order for us to provide the best accommodations to you. Next slide. Pre-event checklist, registration and logistics. Provide access information up front. Share event format, platform, and duration. List an accessibility contact person's name, email, and phone number. If you get a request for accommodations, call and have a conversation if possible for clarification. Next slide. Pre-event checklist, event materials. If you're going to send out resources, make sure they are accessible. Do your images have alt text? Alt text is a concise description of the image. Is your PowerPoint or PDF accessible to screen readers? Send materials ahead of time to participants if possible. Have follow-up information ready to send out. For more information, refer to the resources link in the video description. Pre-event checklist online platforms. Explore the accessibility features of the platform before you use it. Is the platform screen reader friendly? Is joining the meeting screen reader friendly? Is the platform accessible to communication devices? Can attendees participate in multiple ways? Send out instructions for accessing the platform. Establish ground rules for the participation. Test your tech. Pre-event checklist, presenter preparation. Optimize sound quality. Test the sound and use external microphones when possible. Optimize video quality. Make sure each speaker's face is well lit. Determine roles. Who is describing images, charts, and graphs in each slide? Who is monitoring and reading the chat box? Prepare your slides. Limit unnecessary visual clutter on slides. Make sure font size is large enough and has a good contrast to the background. All speakers should be prepared to describe themselves and their surroundings. Moving on to reaching audiences with disabilities.
All right, this is Betsy again, making sure we're connected. Thank you, Tamar. So now we're going to talk a little bit about marketing. So once you're doing all this cool accessibility work, how do you reach the people you want to use it? Slide. Here are some suggestions. You probably already have patrons, employees, people in your community who are low vision, are blind, or know them. So start there, reach out, start letting people know you're doing this, and you're probably going to find individuals already connected with you. Provide an welcome accessibility statement on your website. We have lots of examples of this we can share with you, but let people know that you welcome people with disabilities. If you have any questions or accommodation needs, contact XYZ. That is one of the things Tamar showed you, that accessibility statement, but you can let that live on your website or your brochure. If you don't want to write it all out, you can have a link to a longer statement on your website, but have the accessibility info prominent that people know that you were thinking about this. Have a point person listed, include their email and phone number. Hopefully you can have a real person's name. We know sometimes these people will change and you don't want to put something out if it's going to be different, but it makes that human contact, that there's a real person they can call and ask questions and not get bounced around. We hear that lots of times people are frustrated when they call to request an accommodation. The person might not know what they're talking about, or it's not the right person. Help them get to the person that's knowledgeable, has been trained, and can provide the accommodation or at least answer questions. Lastly, consider targeted marketing about accessibility. If you were providing ASL or audio description for an event, reach out to those communities that might need it. Find a contact person. Slide. You can use the accessibility symbols. These are the ones Debbie just described, but these are services, if you are blind or low vision, you know these symbols, or you are familiar with them, or your spouse or partner is. So access for people who are blind or low vision with a symbol showing the cane, audio description, large print, or braille. These symbols can help people know that you're doing that without writing it out. And the images should include alt text. If you don't know about alt text, there will be a resource included in your, where you got this webinar on how you can learn how to do that. Don't be discouraged if no one shows up the first time. People will tell us, I tried this and nobody came. It takes time to cultivate new audiences. You have to build up trust. You need to make connections in your community. People like to go places they're familiar with, or they have trusted relationships. And that can be you going out, making those connections, and welcoming them into your content or to your event. Use social media. Lots of people might not go to your website, but if you post on a social media site where they give their information, it's an easy way to connect. Create a Facebook event that can be shared. Ask people to share it on sites that they're already on. It can be a great marketing tool. And if you're in North Carolina, reach out to Arts Access. We will promote your event if you are working to be accessible. We have a newsletter every 2 weeks, and we active on social media. So if you're doing something and you're an arts or cultural organization, we can help share that information. On this slide is our website, www.artsaccessinc.org. You can find us on Facebook and Twitter at Arts Access Inc. We are on Instagram at art_access_inc. Or you can call us, 919-833-9919. And there's a menu. You can reach Betsy, Tamar, or Megan on that phone line. Additionally, John Samuel, his information is john.samuel@lcitech.com. Big plug for John. He and his team will do website accessibility and other online content. So that is a great resource also. And please know that Arts Access is a provider of audio description for events in Central and North Carolina. We primarily work in the Triangle, but we are reaching out to the coast and the Sandhills, and we are familiar with other providers around the state. So we can help connect you with having an audio description for an event. We've been doing it since the mid-1990s. We have over 15 audio describers. We do live theater, visual art, dance performances. In 2018, we did 80+ events for 175 people. And if you want to learn how to be an audio describer, we offer a training once a year, usually in January. And you can come, and for 2 days, Debbie and a group of people will train you how to be an audio describer. And we can also bring that training to you if you have a group. and you can find the funding, we will come to you. So there is a contact number, audio description, at artsaccessinc.org that will get you to Debbie, or you can reach out to me to have a longer conversation about how to get trained to do audio description. And there are a lot more resources we're going to list with this video, alt text and other things we described. So thank you so much for being with us today. I want to thank the Arts Access staff, Megan and Tamar. I want to thank our two guest presenters, Debbie Hippler and John Samuel, for both their lived experience, their expertise, and making this webinar awesome. Stay in touch with us, and goodbye.